What if the biggest royal deception wasn't about a crown, but about a birth? No, really. What if the most talked about child in recent royal history, Lilibut Diana, the daughter of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, wasn't carried by Meghan at all? And what if the real story is about to explode, thanks to someone who knows Meghan better than almost anyone alive? Because Samantha Markle, Meghan's half-sister, her sworn nemesis, and now her most dangerous liability, just dropped a surrogacy bombshell so explosive, the House of Windsor might never recover. And the worst part? She's got video. Yes, actual footage. Footage of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry allegedly speaking with a visibly pregnant woman. A woman not named Meghan. A woman who may have carried the future princess of Montecito in her womb. And that footage? It was never meant to see the light of day. Let's pause right here. Take a deep breath. Because this story is not what you think it is. It's bigger, colder, more calculated, and possibly the most quietly buried scandal the Sussexes have ever been involved in, until now. But here's the twist you won't see coming. This isn't just about tabloids and gossip. This surrogacy secret, if true, could have legal, political, and constitutional consequences for the royal titles, for the family's credibility, and for the very legitimacy of Lilibut Diana's place in the royal bloodline. Still think it's just a wild rumor? Let's rewind the tape, because it all begins, not with Meghan, but with Samantha, and with one chilling sentence. She didn't carry that baby, and I can prove it. The internet lit up like wildfire. Twitter threads exploded. TikTok detectives sprang into action. Instagram accounts that hadn't posted in months re-emerged like digital phoenixes to dissect every angle of Meghan's pregnancy wardrobe, every zoomed-in photo of her stomach, and every peculiar public appearance wear. Well, something just didn't add up. But what Samantha said next wasn't just speculation. It wasn't another bitter soundbite from a sibling left in the shadows. It was specific, it was deliberate, and it was documented. A phone call, a voice recording, a private conversation Meghan and Harry allegedly had with the woman carrying Lilibut Diana. And then, the piece de resistance. Unedited video footage, shot on a shaky iPhone, showing a nervous couple, an unknown pregnant woman, and a conversation that could unravel everything. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It was Meghan, it was Harry, and it was a woman who was very, very pregnant. So how did we get here? How did the golden couple of Montecito, once hailed as brave modernizers of the monarchy, end up on the brink of a scandal that could eclipse every royal controversy of the last decade? Because this isn't just about a baby. This is about a lie wrapped in royal PR, encrypted NDAs, and sealed hospital records. But Samantha says it's time to talk, and she says she's not scared anymore. So why now? Why, after years of silence, would Meghan's estranged sister come forward today? Sources say it wasn't a decision made lightly. That she sat on this information for years, terrified of legal consequences, of media backlash, of threats, both spoken and unspoken. But something changed recently, and it wasn't just Meghan and Harry's collapsing public support. According to insiders, Samantha received a message from someone who was supposed to remain anonymous, someone who had vanished into the shadows after playing her part in the Sussexes fairy tale, someone who said she was ready to talk, the surrogate. And once that domino fell, the rest came tumbling down: emails, messages, payment logs, video clips, audio files. A paper trail the Sussexes hoped would stay hidden, a story that was meant to be airtight. But now, it's bleeding. Let's talk about the bumps. Because Meghan's pregnancy with Lilibut Diana was, from the very beginning, strange. There were questions, eyebrows raised, conspiracy theories whispered, photos that showed her bump deflating mid-walk, footage where her stomach seemed to fold in on itself, gloves worn in sunny California, puffy jackets in 90-degree heat. No hospital photos, no delivery details, no doctor speaking, no witnesses. It was all odd. At the time, these theories were dismissed as hateful, as toxic, as desperate attempts to discredit a woman of color who had married into the oldest monarchy in Europe. But what if not everything they said, but just one thing, was true? What if Meghan didn't carry Lilibut? What if it wasn't about race? What if it was about a truth so volatile, so disruptive, It had to be buried under a million layers of positive PR. And what if the person holding that truth is now speaking? Let's also be clear. Surrogacy, in and of itself, is not shameful. Millions of families around the world grow through surrogacy. It's beautiful. It's brave. It's real. But pretending not to have used a surrogate, lying about it for public sympathy, media deals, or royal recognition. That's not just questionable. That's deception. That's manipulation. That's betrayal. Especially when that lie might have been used to secure royal titles for children not born of a royal womb. Especially when the monarchy itself was never told the full truth. Because if Samantha's claims are true, it wasn't just the public who was duped. It was King Charles, Prince William, the crown, the institution, and that changes everything. Now imagine being Harry. Imagine sitting next to your wife, smiling for the cameras, while knowing deep down that your entire fairy tale has a secret chapter, one you can never speak of. Imagine carrying that weight for years. Through Oprah interviews, Netflix documentaries, coronation absences, all while smiling, all while knowing that someday someone might speak, that footage might leak, that surrogate might break her silence, that Samantha Markle, of all people, might come knocking with proof. And now she has. She's named names, shown images, produced messages, and, most damningly, released a clip. A clip that seems to show Harry and Meghan sitting in a small Los Angeles home, speaking softly to a very pregnant woman, thanking her, making arrangements, laughing nervously. One moment in particular sends chills down the spine. Meghan turns to the camera and whispers, "This never happened, okay?" But the camera keeps rolling. Why does this matter now? Because the issue of titles is back on the table. Because the UK Parliament is reviewing laws around succession and royal naming rights. Because King Charles, after a health scare, is reportedly updating the line of succession again. Because there are whispers, loud whispers, that if Lilibet was not carried by Meghan and no formal surrogacy agreement was declared under UK law, her claim to titles and future rights could be legally challenged. And Meghan knows this. So does Harry. And Samantha? Well, she's done being silent. She says the truth deserves daylight. And she's willing to burn bridges, reputations, and entire empires to make sure that happens. But what comes next, no one saw coming. Because the surrogate she's talking to, and the footage, that was just the beginning. What happens when the person everyone dismissed as bitter suddenly shows up with documents, timestamps, and a story she says she can finally prove? That's the question that detonated across social media the moment Samantha Markle opened her mouth again. Not whispered, not teased, not hinted, dropped. One sentence, calm voice, no theatrics. She didn't carry that baby, and I can prove it. Now pause right there. Because whether you believe Samantha Markle or not, and plenty of people don't, this wasn't the kind of vague accusation tabloids recycle for clicks. This was structured, framed, timed, and, according to Samantha, backed by material she'd been sitting on for years. So ask yourself, why now? Why risk everything? Lawsuits, ridicule, total character assassination, now? The moment the clip surfaced, reactions split down the middle. Half the internet rolled its eyes. Here we go again. Another Markle cash grab. Desperate. But the other half? They leaned forward. Because Samantha didn't sound unhinged. She didn't sound emotional. She sounded prepared. Measured sentences. Specific details. Dates. Places. And one line that instantly changed the temperature in the room. There's footage. Not "I heard." Not "someone told me." Footage. And suddenly, even skeptics stopped scrolling. Let's rewind to how this actually broke. Not through a tabloid cover. Not through a sensational headline. It started quietly. A low-view interview clip. A niche channel. A casual conversation that didn't feel scripted. Samantha wasn't ranting. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't crying. She was explaining. She talked about silence. About fear. About legal threats she claims kept her quiet for years. About documents she says were locked away because she didn't want to destroy children who had no say in any of it. That part matters. Because Samantha didn't lead with Meghan. She led with the kids. She said she waited because, in her words, children shouldn't pay for adult decisions. So what changed? According to Samantha, someone reached out to her. Someone who had never spoken publicly. Someone whose name had never appeared in print. A woman. A pregnant woman. Or rather, a woman who had been pregnant. And that's when the story stopped being theoretical. Here's where the tone shifts. Because Samantha didn't claim Meghan used a surrogate as a rumor. She framed it as a coordinated, private arrangement. One she says involved NDAs, intermediaries, and an understanding that the truth would never surface. She says Meghan didn't want sympathy. She wanted control. Control of the narrative. Control of timing. Control of how motherhood was presented to the world. Again, these are claims. Allegations. Samantha's account. But the reason people paused wasn't because they automatically believed her. It was because parts of the timeline suddenly felt familiar. Remember the California pregnancy? Remember how little was shared? No hospital steps. No doctor statements. No birthing announcement with signatures. No verifiable public record offered. Plenty of explanations exist. Privacy, security, trauma. And yet, questions lingered. And Samantha leaned straight into them. She didn't start with accusations. She started with logistics. Where Meghan and Harry were living. Who had access to them. Who traveled quietly. Who didn't appear in photos. She described meetings. Conversations she says were relayed to her secondhand at first, and later confirmed, she claims, by the woman involved. And then she said something that shifted the room again. There was a conversation recorded. It wasn't meant to be shared, but it exists. Recorded how? She didn't say immediately. That pause did more damage than any shout ever could. Now let's talk about Harry. Because Samantha didn't portray him as the mastermind. She portrayed him as shocked, conflicted, hesitant, quiet. According to her version of events, Harry wasn't fully in control of the process. That he went along with decisions, trusting his wife, trusting advisors, trusting that this was the safest way forward. Is that true? No one knows. But here's the contradiction that stuck with viewers. Harry has spoken endlessly about honesty, transparency, trauma, breaking cycles. So why would this be the one thing never acknowledged? Why talk about everything except this? That contradiction gnawed at people. Then came the clip. Not the footage itself. Just Samantha describing it. She said it shows Meghan and Harry sitting with a pregnant woman. Casual clothes. No glam. No performance. Just quiet conversation. She claimed Meghan thanks her. She claimed Harry asks questions. She claimed the conversation includes phrases like timing, privacy, and no one can ever know. Those words alone lit up the internet. Because they echoed language people had heard before, language Meghan and Harry used in other contexts when discussing secrecy and protection. Coincidence? Maybe. But coincidence, stacked on coincidence, starts to feel heavier. Still, many people dismissed it. Until another detail slipped out. Samantha said the footage wasn't leaked by her originally. It was offered to her. That detail changed everything. Because it suggested someone else was ready to talk. And that someone had nothing to gain, at least publicly. No titles. No fame. No platform. Just a story. And a silence she was done keeping. Let's address the elephant in the room. Why would anyone believe Samantha Markle? She's been portrayed for years as unreliable, estranged, motivated by resentment. And that's exactly why this moment worked. Because Samantha acknowledged that. She didn't deny the bad blood. She didn't pretend the relationship was loving. She didn't claim moral purity. She said, "You don't have to like me to listen to evidence." That line traveled. And then came the legal murmurs. Quiet at first. Lawyers on social media discussing surrogacy laws in the UK. Commentators pointing out that royal succession rules aren't flexible. That legal motherhood and biological motherhood aren't interchangeable under certain statutes. Suddenly, this wasn't gossip. It was hypotheticals with consequences. What if a surrogate was used and not declared? What if documentation was handled privately? What if assumptions were made and never corrected? Again, hypotheticals, but dangerous ones. And Meghan? Silent. No statement. No denial. No spokesperson comment. Silence that, fairly or unfairly, only fed speculation. Because Meghan has never been shy about correcting narratives she considers false. So why not now? Some said legal strategy. Some said ignoring it would starve the story. Some said shock. Samantha claimed it was panic. No one can prove any of that. But the silence was loud. Then something else happened. Smaller creators started noticing inconsistencies they hadn't focused on before. Video clips where Meghan's bump seemed oddly positioned. Moments where it appeared rigid. angles where it vanished. Were these optical illusions? Camera tricks? Clothing choices? Possibly. But now they were being rewatched through a different lens. And once a lens changes, everything looks different. Here's the emotional beat people didn't expect. Samantha didn't sound victorious. She sounded tired. She talked about family imploding, about children growing up online, about secrets becoming burdens. She said, "This wasn't meant to come out like this." That line landed hard. Because if this were purely revenge, she'd be celebrating. She wasn't. She sounded like someone who knew the blast radius. But the biggest twist? She said this was only the beginning. That what she'd shared publicly was sanitized, controlled. That the raw material, the full footage, the unedited audio, was being reviewed. By whom? She didn't say. Lawyers? Journalists? Investigators? Another pause. Another hook. And then came the line that ended the interview. The surrogate is ready to speak. And she has proof. No names. No faces. Just a promise. And suddenly, the story wasn't about Samantha Markle anymore. It was about someone else. Someone whose body carried a secret. Someone who signed paperwork believing silence was permanent. Someone who may have realized silence doesn't protect you forever. So where does that leave us? With questions. Big ones. Did this really happen the way Samantha claims? Is there footage? And if so, will it ever be verified? Was Harry truly shocked or complicit? And if a surrogate exists, why is she stepping forward now? Because here's the thing. Stories like this don't collapse empires overnight. They do it slowly, piece by piece. And the next piece? It isn't Samantha. It's the woman Samantha says Meghan Markle never wanted you to see. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. She wasn't supposed to be found. No photos. No online profile. No trace of involvement. But suddenly, there she was. The woman Samantha Markle claimed had carried Lilibet Diana. The woman behind one of the most explosive allegations to ever graze the gates of Windsor. A woman who had, until now, existed only in whispers and shadows. But who was she? And why, after years of silence, was she ready to speak? Let's get into it. First, let's be very clear. Her name hasn't been confirmed publicly. Samantha never said it outright. And every media outlet, at least the reputable ones, have blurred her face, redacted her documents, and referred to her by pseudonyms like Claire, Emily, or S. But according to multiple leaked DMs, insider forums, and even a few brave ex-colleagues who claim to know her, here's what we do know. She's not a stranger. Not to Meghan. Not to the Sussexes. And not to the world of PR-managed surrogacy. In fact, if the rumors are true, she might have been handpicked long before Meghan and Harry even moved to Montecito. So how does one go about choosing a surrogate for a royal-adjacent child? Quietly, discreetly, and far outside the UK. You see, British surrogacy laws are complicated. They involve formal agreements, court declarations, transparent birth certificates, a legal structure the palace would have required full compliance with, had they been informed. But in California, it's different. Gestational surrogacy is common, legal, flexible. It also allows for private contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and birth certificates that can name anyone as the legal parent, regardless of who carried the child. And that's where the story gets interesting. Because according to Samantha, and supported by whispers from those claiming knowledge, the woman at the center of this storm wasn't just any surrogate. She had a history, not criminal, not scandalous, professional. She had done this before. So how did Meghan allegedly know her? Here's where the plot thickens. Some say the surrogate was a mutual contact from Meghan's pre-royal Hollywood days. Not a close friend, but someone in her extended wellness and lifestyle circle. A yoga teacher's sister. A former background actress. A doula turned surrogate coordinator. Again, none of this is confirmed. But the breadcrumbs are everywhere. One anonymous source described her as a calm presence, maternal, but very businesslike. Another said, she didn't gush. She treated it like a project. A sacred one, but a project. And one detail kept recurring, discretion. She was chosen, allegedly, because of her silence. Because of her calm demeanor. Because she had a reputation for keeping her head down and avoiding drama. So why speak now? That's the million-dollar question. Samantha says it was guilt, but others say it was fear. You see, something shifted in the last year. Rumors began to circulate that the Sussexes were preparing legal documents to formally distance themselves from several former staffers and contractors, possibly to shield themselves ahead of a major media pivot or lawsuit. One of those contractors? Allegedly, the surrogate, according to documents Samantha teased but did not release. The woman received a final lump sum payment several months after Lilibet's birth, followed by a tightly worded cease and desist order and a reminder of confidentiality terms. That, insiders say, was her breaking point, because she felt discarded, used, erased. Imagine that. You carry a child for a global power couple. You go through the physical trauma, the hormonal upheaval, the emotional bond. And then, you vanish. No Christmas card. No check-in. No thank you beyond the check. Just silence. Would you stay silent? Let's talk about the alleged meeting. According to Samantha, the surrogate reached out via encrypted email. She didn't write a long explanation. Just this. I think it's time. They met in a small cafe in Tallahassee, Florida. Samantha showed up with no phone. The woman wore sunglasses and a hood. She handed over a flash drive. On it, a 7-minute video, 2 audio files, and a scanned version of a contract that, if authentic, details a gestational surrogacy agreement signed by 2 parties, an unnamed couple, and herself. No names. But the timelines? The due date? The stipulations about privacy? All aligned perfectly with the timeline of Lilibet's birth. Samantha asked her, "Why now?" She allegedly replied, "Because I want my daughter to know I didn't lie." Wait, her daughter? Yes. According to Samantha, the surrogate had a daughter of her own. A teenager. Who's now asking questions. Who saw the tabloids. Who figured out something wasn't right. She didn't want to lie to her anymore. That's what cracked the silence. Not fame. Not money. Family. But before you feel too cozy, here's where things take a darker turn. Because someone was watching. Just days after that alleged cafe meeting, Samantha claims she received a cease and desist letter. Not from Meghan or Harry directly, but from a Los Angeles-based law firm often associated with high-profile celebrity crisis control. The letter accused Samantha of interfering with confidential agreements and possessing material that may have been unlawfully obtained. It didn't mention the surrogate by name, but the message was clear: back off. Instead, Samantha went public. She didn't release the full footage. Not yet. Instead, she released a blurry still frame. It shows Meghan, hair up, no makeup, sitting on a couch beside Harry, who appears tense. Across from them, a woman with a large belly sits with a hand on her stomach. No one's face is clear, but the shape of Meghan's engagement ring glints in the light. And suddenly, the internet went nuclear. TikTok sleuths began frame-matching Meghan's known rings, comparing light fixtures, analyzing the wallpaper, looking for traces of the Montecito mansion or a rental property used during their quiet periods. Some claimed to find a match. A luxury Airbnb property in Pasadena, rented under an alias for 2 months in early 2021. Coincidence? Or evidence? You decide. So where is the surrogate now? No one knows for sure. Some say she's in hiding. Some say she's preparing a tell-all. Some say she's negotiating with a third-party journalist. Samantha claims she's not doing it for money, but legal insiders say she's likely going to need it. Because if she speaks openly, and her NDA is real, she'll be hit with lawsuits almost immediately. And that could bankrupt her. So she's caught in a war between truth and survival. Would you speak? Let's return to the question, who is the surrogate? She's a woman with no platform, no royal ties, no global influence, just a uterus and a memory. And now, she holds the thread that could unravel a carefully stitched royal fairy tale. She never wanted this. But here she is. And what comes next? According to Samantha, she's about to go public. And she's not going alone. Because there's one more detail Samantha dropped. And it's the one that sent Meghan's legal team into overdrive. She says the surrogate didn't just carry Lilibet. She recorded voice memos throughout the pregnancy, documenting her physical condition, her conversations, her fears. And one of those voice memos allegedly captures Meghan's voice, saying this: "No one can know. This has to look natural." 7 words. 7 potentially devastating words. But that's not even the most explosive part. Because in the background of that recording, Samantha claims you can hear a third voice, a child's voice, saying, "Is that my sister?" So who is the surrogate? She's the woman Meghan Markle hoped you'd never hear from. But now, she's ready to speak. And what she reveals next will send shockwaves across the Atlantic. Because this isn't just about birth. It's about deception, power, and the one truth the palace feared the world would uncover. And next, we hear the audio, and it changes everything. What if you could hear the truth? Not read it, not speculate, but hear it. The voices, the tone, the hesitation. The exact moment a royal secret slipped out, not in a press release, not in a staged documentary, but in a raw, unfiltered recording made by a woman who never thought the world would hear it. Well, now the world has. And it's worse than anyone imagined. Because if what you're about to hear is real, and let's be clear, if, then it doesn't just confirm Samantha's bombshell. It obliterates Meghan and Harry's version of events. Let's break it down. The leak didn't come through the tabloids. It didn't come from a royal insider or disgruntled employee. It came from the one person no one expected to have kept everything, the alleged surrogate herself. According to sources close to Samantha Markle, the surrogate had a habit of recording voice memos during her pregnancy. Why? Some say it was for legal protection. Some say it was emotional, a way to process what she was doing. And others believe it was instinct. Because somewhere deep inside, she knew this story might not stay buried forever. She didn't use professional gear. No boom mics or studio filters. Just a regular iPhone. But the clarity? Devastating. The first voice on the audio is Harry. Calm, nervous, slightly awkward. You can hear him laugh, uncomfortably, as he says, "I still don't know how we're supposed to explain this to anyone." The surrogate replies, voice soft, "You don't have to. That's the point." Then, silence. Shuffling. The clink of a teacup. And then Meghan's voice. Recognizable. Sharp. Calm but commanding. This isn't about deception. It's about privacy. And control. Let that sink in. Because that sentence alone sent shockwaves through every corner of the internet when the audio surfaced on an anonymous Telegram channel just hours after Samantha's interview aired. The post? Captioned, "Guess who's talking now?" It had no metadata, no timestamp, but voice analysts quickly got to work. And what they found? Frighteningly consistent with Meghan and Harry's real speech patterns. Of course, skeptics swarmed in. It's fake. It's AI. It's a deep-fake audio. No way they'd be so careless. But forensic analysts who reviewed the file say it lacks the typical markers of synthetic generation. The breathing, the overlapping dialogue, the subtle stammering. These are human signatures, messy, real, unscripted. And while nothing is 100% verified, the response from the Sussexes legal team said it all. Within 24 hours of the leak, takedown notices flooded Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit. The file vanished from public platforms. But not before it was downloaded, shared, reposted, transcribed. The truth, or something terrifyingly close to it, was already out. Let's go deeper into the transcript. Because one exchange in the audio changed everything. "Harry, you think she'll be okay doing this? I mean, it's not just physical. Surrogate, I've done it before. But this time, yeah, it's different. Meghan, there's more at stake. Just remember, there's no room for mistakes." Mistakes? What mistakes? The audio doesn't clarify, but the implication hit listeners like a brick wall. This wasn't a casual arrangement. This was strategic, controlled, monitored. And Meghan's tone? Cold, composed, planned. At one point, she adds, "We'll announce the pregnancy next month." That gives us enough lead time to make it look natural. Enough lead time to make it look natural. Read that again. The leak sent royal watchers into a frenzy. Clips of the audio, barely 15 seconds long, were dissected on podcasts, TikToks, and live streams. Some said it was damning. Others said it was inconclusive. But no one could deny its emotional weight. Because even if you doubted the surrogate's role, even if you dismissed Samantha's claims, hearing Meghan talk about lead time and making it look natural raised questions no PR team could spin. And Harry? He came off as confused, passive. The husband trying to keep up with a wife who had already mapped out every step. Sound familiar? Because it matches every whisper we've heard from ex-staffers. From leaks and spare. From that uncomfortable Netflix moment where Harry stammered while Meghan filled the silence. It wasn't just the words. It was the dynamic. But the most chilling part of the recording wasn't what they said. It was what they didn't say. At no point did Meghan mention love, or excitement, or gratitude, or maternal bonding. It was clinical, transactional. At one point, she even says, she, the surrogate, won't be part of this beyond delivery. That's in the agreement. Like she was talking about a rental, not a human being growing her child. Even supporters of Meghan were rattled by that line. Because even if surrogacy is legal, even if it was the right choice for them, why erase the woman behind it? Why lie? Unless the truth would cost something they couldn't afford to lose. Like public sympathy, like royal titles, like legacy. Meanwhile, the palace? Silent. And that silence said more than words ever could. Because if they knew and did nothing, that's collusion. And if they didn't, that's betrayal. Especially to the Queen, who reportedly was never informed of the arrangement. Remember, Buckingham Palace confirmed the birth of Lilibet only after Meghan and Harry announced it first through their channels. No doctors, no photos, just a name. And now that name, Lilibet, feels like salt in a wound. A tribute to a monarch allegedly kept in the dark. But the leak didn't stop with one file. A second, shorter clip surfaced days later. More background noise. Laughter. The surrogate's voice saying. She said it needs to look organic. Like, photos in the garden. A walk with the dogs. That sort of thing. It sounds mundane. Even harmless. Until you realize what's being choreographed. The performance of pregnancy. The bending of reality. Not to protect privacy. To manipulate perception. That's the accusation. And the audio only made it harder to dismiss. Now let's talk about Samantha's role. She didn't leak the files directly. That's clear. But according to multiple insiders, she has the originals. And she's holding them. Waiting. Not for leverage, but for timing. She's reportedly consulting with legal advisors about how to release them without violating federal law. Because these aren't just gossip clips. They're potential evidence. Of deception. Of fraud. Of image manipulation on a royal scale. And with Parliament already grumbling about the Sussexes' titles, this leak may be the first domino in a larger investigation. But ask yourself, why would the surrogate record this? Why save it for years? Unless she knew something might go wrong. Unless she felt unsafe, unseen, disposable. Samantha says the surrogate was never trying to go public. Until recently. Until it became clear that she was being erased, written out of a story she lived with her entire body. And now? She wants the truth known, not for fame, but for her daughter. Because if Lilibet grows up believing a story that isn't hers, what does that say about the value of the woman who actually carried her? What does it say about truth? About motherhood? About choice? Let's step back for a second. Maybe it wasn't Meghan's voice. Maybe it was AI. Maybe the whole thing's a hoax. But if that's true, where's the denial? Why hasn't Meghan's team gone on a media blitz? Why haven't they released a statement denouncing Samantha as a liar, a manipulator? Why silence? Could it be they're buying time? Rewriting the narrative? Negotiating with the surrogate behind the scenes? Because the one thing they haven't done is sue. And for a couple so quick to litigate, that silence is loud. So now we wait. For the next file. The next piece of proof. The next voice memo, time-stamped and raw. And if it comes, it could be the final nail in the PR coffin of Meghan and Harry's self-made empire. Because footage is one thing. But audio? It feels real. You hear it. You live it. And when that voice says, make it look natural, you don't forget it. Because maybe nothing was natural at all. But what came next would rip the entire facade apart and drag Meghan into a confrontation she could no longer avoid. Because the video was about to be released. It was just an iPhone. No cinematographer. No crew. No lights. Just one shaky hand. One quiet afternoon. And one video that, if authenticated, could destroy the Sussexes' entire narrative in under 7 minutes. This wasn't a documentary. This wasn't a PR video. This was raw, personal, messy, and according to the woman who recorded it, never meant to be seen by anyone. But now, it's all anyone can talk about. Because once that clip surfaced, the questions about Meghan's pregnancy with Lilibet Diana stopped being whispers. They became a roar. And the face behind it? Not Meghan, not Harry, but a woman with a baby bump and a secret. Let's rewind. Before the clip hit Telegram. Before it got buried by takedown notices. Before lawyers tried to bury it under layers of silence. This footage had been burning a hole in someone's hard drive for over 3 years. The surrogate, yes, that surrogate allegedly recorded the moment herself, with permission. At least, that's what she claims. Samantha Markle says the footage was taken during one of several quiet meetings between Meghan, Harry, and the woman they privately referred to as our angel, a phrase that might have sounded sweet if the next few minutes hadn't unraveled into something deeply unsettling. The video opens in a modest California bungalow, not the Montecito mansion, not a luxury suite, a plain room, cream walls, woven throw pillows, a dusty floor lamp in the corner. There's Meghan, wearing leggings and a baggy sweater, her hair tied back. Harry's off to the side, scrolling through his phone, then setting it face down. And on the couch between them, the surrogate, her face partially obscured, her belly prominent. She's visibly in her third trimester, and she's laughing, nervously. You can hear it in her voice, strained, polite. The kind of laugh you make when you're trying to normalize something. That isn't. Meghan speaks first. Let's just talk like it's a catch-up. No pressure. Harry nods. We really appreciate you doing this. Honestly, the surrogate smiles. She rubs her belly. Then she says, do you want to talk about the name again? Boom. That line, just a casual question, sparked a firestorm. Because in June 2021, Harry and Meghan publicly claimed that they named their daughter Lilibet after she was born, in a loving tribute to Queen Elizabeth II. Yet here, in a video dated. According to metadata, 2 months before the public birth announcement, they're already discussing the name. Worse, Meghan's response. I think we lock in Lilibet. It's clean, sentimental, and no one will see it coming. That's a marketing response, not a mother's. And the internet noticed. Let's talk about the body language. Because while Meghan is composed, almost managerial, Harry fidgets constantly. He rubs his eyes, adjusts his watch, clears his throat. Multiple times, he glances at the camera, as if remembering it's recording. Then comes the chilling part. The surrogate looks directly into the lens and says, I just want to be clear. I'm happy to do this. But once she's born, I step away. Right. Meghan doesn't hesitate. Exactly. You disappear. That's part of what we loved about you. You disappear. That line lit a fuse. Within hours of the video's leak, Reddit threads were exploding. Twitter, now X, had #YouDisappear trending worldwide. Analysts and psychologists were called into podcasts to discuss the coldness in Meghan's tone. Even her most ardent defenders were squirming. Because even if this was an arrangement, that phrasing, it sounded like erasure. Now let's talk about the detail everyone missed at first. On the coffee table in the video sits a folder. It's closed. But at one point, Meghan opens it and pulls out a piece of paper. She holds it up. It's titled, Final Media Rollout Timeline. Zoom and enhance. Blurry, but legible. A few key entries. May 12th, last surrogate medical visit. June 3rd, Meghan bumps debut in soft focus photo, orchard scene. June 12th, pre-birth statement drafted. June 15th, media embargo lifts. Birth announcement scheduled. Birth announcement scheduled. Before the birth. The implication? They were planning everything, down to the minute. And the orchard scene? That's believed to be a reference to the photo Meghan and Harry released of themselves barefoot in a garden, cradling her bump. A photo now seen in a very different light. You might ask, how do we know this isn't staged? Could it be faked? A deep fake? AI? Analysts were split. But here's what raised eyebrows. The surrogate's hand. Midway through the video, she adjusts her sweater and scratches her arm, revealing a distinctive scar, a tiny curved line near her wrist. That same scar appears in an old photograph posted to a now-deleted Facebook account belonging to a woman connected to surrogacy forums in Southern California. That woman, believed to be the very same person Samantha referred to in her interview. And suddenly, things got real. Meghan's legal team moved fast. Takedown notices flew like bullets. Any YouTuber who reposted even a second of the clip got flagged. Entire TikTok accounts were suspended, and Meghan's reps issued a vague statement. Any attempt to fabricate or manipulate deeply personal moments will be met with legal response. Note the wording. Not, this video is false. Not, we categorically deny using a surrogate. Just, fabricate and manipulate. A masterclass in legal ambiguity. And yet, there was still no direct denial. No sitting down on a morning show. No controlled damage control. Only silence, which, as we know, speaks volumes. But here's where the story veers into the surreal. Because toward the end of the clip, something happens that no PR team can spin. The surrogate begins crying. Not sobbing, not breaking down, just a single tear sliding down her cheek. She whispers, "It's strange. She's moving now, and I already know I'll never see her again." Harry looks uncomfortable. Meghan doesn't respond. She just shifts in her seat, then says, "That's why we're doing this now. Before it gets too emotional. Before it gets too emotional." For a woman carrying your daughter, that one sentence shattered whatever goodwill was left. Even casual viewers, those who previously didn't care one way or the other, were rattled. Because this wasn't royal. It was ruthless. The video ends abruptly. No goodbyes. No warm words. Just a cut to black. 7 minutes. That's all it took. 7 minutes to dismantle 2 years of pregnancy narratives, public appearances, and media tours. 7 minutes to reveal that what looked like a private, joyful journey into motherhood might have been a highly orchestrated performance. One final note. At the very end, just before the screen fades, Meghan turns to the camera and, half smiling, says, "This never happened." "Okay." She laughs. Harry chuckles nervously. The surrogate doesn't smile. She looks down at her stomach. And that's where it ends. But not for us. Because now, the footage exists. And the internet never forgets. So what's next? Samantha says more is coming. That this was the appetizer. That what's about to be revealed could involve Lilibut's birth certificate, a hidden delivery location, and another recording. This time, from a phone call that took place after the baby was born. A call that, according to Samantha, might finally confirm what Meghan and Harry have spent years trying to deny. Because if the surrogate's name isn't on that certificate, then someone went to great lengths to rewrite history, and the person holding the pen might not have been royal at all. But what came next would drag the palace into the scandal and trigger a constitutional crisis no one saw coming. One day it was there, the next it was gone. Meghan Markle's pregnancy with Lilibut Diana was supposed to be the quiet, graceful contrast to the chaos of Archie's birth. A peaceful chapter, away from the palace, away from scrutiny, away from tradition. But instead, it became something else entirely. A vanishing act so subtle, so smooth, that by the time the world noticed, it was already too late. Because here's the thing. No one can seem to prove that Meghan Markle was ever visibly pregnant with Lilibut Diana. Let that settle in. From the beginning, things felt off. On Valentine's Day 2021, Meghan and Harry released a photo to announce her second pregnancy. A black and white, stylized image. Meghan lying in the grass, Harry by her side, her hand on a noticeable baby bump. It was beautiful, artistic, but clinical observers raised eyebrows immediately. Where was the timestamp? Why such a carefully staged image? Why not something more candid? More importantly, why wasn't there any public appearance to follow up that announcement? The answer? COVID, privacy, trauma from the last pregnancy. All fair reasons. But they didn't explain what came next. Because Meghan's bump vanished. And it didn't just vanish once. It changed shape, shrunk, reappeared, disappeared again, over, and over, and over. Let's look at the timeline. February 14th, pregnancy announcement photo is released. March 7th, the Oprah interview airs. Meghan appears seated throughout, wearing a black floral Armani dress. No full body shot of her standing. No bump in motion. April 2021, no public appearances. May 2021, a single photo appears online. Meghan cradling her bump in a flowing white dress during a virtual appearance for the Vax Live campaign. Again, no motion. No video. No candid walk. And then, silence. No paparazzi shots. No blurry TMZ footage outside Whole Foods. No paparazzi tracking her in LA, the same city they hounded relentlessly just a year earlier. She was invisible. Now, let's compare this to her pregnancy with Archie. Back then, Meghan was photographed regularly. Walking, smiling, cradling her stomach in nearly every photo. The bump was consistent, visible, sometimes exaggerated, even. But with Lilibut, the bump seemed to appear only when Meghan wanted it to. Controlled, curated. The only moving image of her pregnant with Lilibut came in a short clip from the Vax Live video, where again, She was heavily draped in a loose, shapeless dress that prevented any clear outline. Was that intentional or protective? Supporters say Meghan was traumatized, that she didn't know the world anything. Critics say that's the point, that a woman in her third trimester, living in the paparazzi capital of the world, should have been photographed at least once candidly. But no one ever did. Why? Let's dive into one of the most viral moments, the bump fold. In a 5-second clip from a charity event, archived by internet sleuths, Meghan walks onto a stage, then sits down. As she does, her stomach visibly creases. Not in a normal, maternity way, but like a pillow. A deflation. A fold. At the time, skeptics called it a moon bump, a term for prosthetic bellies used by actresses. Fans defended her, saying the fabric was bunching or that the angle was misleading. But now, with Samantha's claims, the surrogate's voice, and the alleged video footage, people are rewatching, and they're seeing something they missed the first time. A pattern, a choreography, a pregnancy built for Instagram, but never caught in the wild. And here's something that still hasn't been explained. Why were there no hospital details shared? With Archie, Meghan and Harry issued a carefully worded statement after the birth. But with Lilibet, no hospital name, no attending physician, no time of birth listed, no confirmation of which country the birth took place in. Just a single announcement on their website, saying she was born in Santa Barbara. That's it. No press release from Cedars-Sinai. No doctor verifying the birth. Just Meghan's word. And now, with a surrogate's voice ringing in our ears, it begs the question. Did Meghan ever deliver that baby? The birth certificate? It exists, but it raised questions too. Released weeks after Lilibet's birth, it lists Meghan as the mother, with her name stylized as Rachel Meghan Markle. It does not mention a surrogate. Legally, that's allowed in California. But here's where it gets murky. California requires the intended parents to file pre-birth orders in surrogacy cases, paperwork that allows them to appear on the birth certificate from day one. That's normal. But if those documents exist, they've never been produced. And now, legal analysts are starting to ask, was everything filed properly? Was there a judge's order? A sealed surrogacy agreement? Or did someone take advantage of legal gray zones? Because if that agreement was never filed, then that birth certificate could be challenged. Let's talk about the gloves. In multiple appearances, even during hot California days, Meghan wore large, often black gloves. No explanation. No medical condition publicly known. Just gloves. Some theorists suggest she used them to cover up the absence of pregnancy swelling in her fingers. No puffiness. No pregnancy glow. No hormonal side effects visible. Too speculative? Maybe. But when you line it up with the timeline of the alleged surrogate's third trimester, it all fits. Too neatly. So what would motivate someone to fake a pregnancy? That's the question everyone wants answered. Was it about image? About maintaining the fairy tale? About keeping the maternal journey in Meghan's hands, literally? Some say it was financial. That Meghan wanted to appear relatable, vulnerable, maternal. That the press coverage around a pregnancy she could control was easier than admitting to a surrogate narrative she couldn't. After all, how do you film a pregnancy documentary without a belly? How do you sell motherhood without the bump? But here's the most haunting possibility. What if it wasn't about the media at all? What if it was about royal lineage? Because under traditional laws of succession, royal bloodlines and title inheritance require strict biological verification. If Lilibet was born via surrogate and the palace was never informed, that could complicate, if not invalidate, her claim to any future royal status. Think about that. A single decision, a single unspoken truth, and an entire branch of the monarchy could be thrown into constitutional chaos. All because one woman didn't show her bump. Now let's zoom out. This isn't about body shaming or pregnancy policing. It's about inconsistencies, stories that don't line up, appearances that vanish, timelines that wobble under scrutiny. And in an age where everyone has a phone, a camera, a drone, how did the most photographed woman on Earth manage to avoid all unplanned photos during her second pregnancy? Not once, not twice, completely, unless there was nothing to photograph. Samantha Markle put it bluntly in her latest interview. She didn't disappear for privacy. She disappeared because she wasn't pregnant. Simple, chilling. And with every new leak, it feels harder to dismiss. Because the pregnancy with Lilibet didn't end in celebration. It ended in silence. No hospital steps. No swaddled infant. No glowing parents. Just a photo of Harry, Meghan, and baby Lilibet in their Montecito backyard, filtered, softened, and inexplicably delayed. Even that photo came out months after the birth. Too late. Too curated. Too perfect. So what are we left with? A missing pregnancy. A shaky timeline. A birth certificate under legal question. And a public growing more skeptical by the day. Because when you fake a bump once, the world notices. When you fake it twice, the world remembers. And when you fake it with a royal heir involved, the world never forgets. But what came next wasn't speculation. It was documentation. Because a whistleblower from Cedars-Sinai was about to break silence and confirm what the palace hoped no one would ever ask. Where, exactly, was Meghan Markle on the day she said Lilibet Diana was born? What happens when the most anticipated royal birth of the year doesn't appear on any hospital record? No intake forms. No discharge. No room assignments. No witnesses. No delivery confirmation. And yet, a baby is born? Welcome to the mystery of Meghan Markle's alleged delivery of Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor. Because if you believe the official story, Meghan gave birth to Lilibet on June 4, 2021, at Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital, a luxury facility close to their Montecito estate. But if you go looking for the paperwork, the trail runs cold, and the questions begin piling up. Where is the medical documentation? Why did no nurse, no doctor, no midwife come forward to confirm the birth? And most chilling of all, what if no one could? Because a whistleblower just stepped out of the shadows. And according to them, Meghan Markle was never there. Let's start with the hospital. Santa Barbara Cottage is not just any medical center. It's a high-end, state-of-the-art facility with VIP maternity wings, celebrity birthing suites, and full discretion for high-profile patients. It's where Hollywood's elite deliver their babies in comfort and privacy. Naturally, the press believed this was the Sussexes' choice too. No one questioned it. Until now. Because according to a former administrative assistant who recently contacted a UK-based investigative podcast, no one named Rachel Meghan Markle was ever registered as a patient on or around June 4, 2021. Not under that name. Not under Duchess of Sussex. Not even under any known alias the Sussexes had used in prior bookings. She wasn't there. Not that day. Not the week before. Not the week after. So how did this whistleblower come forward? Quietly. An encrypted message sent to the podcast's anonymous tip line. A brief voice message. And a promise to back it up with screenshots, internal logs from the hospital's scheduling system. These logs showed all maternity ward admissions from June 1st through June 7th. Guess what? No Meghan. No Harry. No private wing reservation under security detail. No special accommodation notes. No OBGYN flagged for celebrity care. Nothing. The name Mountbatten-Windsor never appeared in the system. And even stranger? No record of any newborn matching Lilibet Diana's reported birth weight and time of birth. Let that sink in. Because every hospital, not just in California, but across the U.S., must record vital statistics for newborns within 24 hours for legal filing. Lilibet's details? Still shrouded in mystery. Now here's where the conspiracy deepens. When reporters started sniffing around Santa Barbara Cottage in late 2021, they were met with tight-lipped administrators. One reporter asked if any Duchess of Sussex had delivered there in June. The reply? We do not confirm or deny patient care at our facility, per HIPAA laws. Standard protocol. But now, with the alleged internal logs leaking and multiple staff anonymously confirming Meghan was never admitted, critics are starting to wonder, did Meghan ever set foot in that hospital? Or was it always just a front? Here's the next curveball. If Meghan didn't give birth there and the surrogate did, where did she deliver? Samantha Markle hinted at this in her second interview, saying, let's just say Lily wasn't born anywhere near Santa Barbara. She was born across state lines, under a different name, and delivered by a doctor who was never cleared to speak. A surrogate birth, in another state, under complete confidentiality. No wonder no one can verify it, because it was never supposed to be public. And here's the kicker. One researcher claims to have tracked a private birthing center in Nevada that received a high-profile surrogacy client around the same time, registered under the name Diana S. Initials that would later match Diana Sussex in leaked surrogacy contracts reviewed by an anonymous law firm whistleblower. Coincidence? Maybe. But it's a lot of coincidences, stacked like dominoes. And we all know what happens when you tip the first one. Let's talk about the silence from Santa Barbara Cottage. Since the whistleblower came forward, multiple requests for comment have been submitted by journalists and online sleuths. The hospital's response? Identical form statements. Nothing more. But behind the scenes, insiders claim there's been chaos. At least 2 employees have allegedly been placed on administrative leave. One source says the hospital's legal team has been on red alert since the internal system breach. So what are they hiding? Are they protecting Meghan? Or protecting themselves from a much deeper legal nightmare? Because if they falsely claim to have delivered a royal child, that's more than bad press. That's a crime. Meanwhile, royal watchers are pointing out yet another inconsistency. No royal congratulatory message was released through official palace channels until 2 full days after the reported birth. That's unusual. With Archie, there were near-instant acknowledgments. Even though Meghan and Harry were already distancing themselves from royal life. But with Lilibet? Silence. Followed by a delayed statement. Followed by nothing. No post-birth photo. No baby footprints. No follow-up engagement. No formal introduction. Just a single sentence confirming the birth of their daughter Lilibet Lily Diana Mountbatten Windsor. No mention of where. No mention of who delivered her. No doctors' names. No hospital badge. No registered midwife. No witnesses. Nothing. Almost as if it never happened. Let's go even darker. Some researchers claim Meghan may have forged or legally amended Lilibet's birth certificate. California allows amendments to birth certificates post-issuance in cases of name changes, gender clarification, or parentage verification. But if the surrogate gave birth and was not declared as the birth mother, that's a major ethical and legal issue. Why? Because in many jurisdictions, hiding the existence of a surrogate, especially while leveraging the birth for commercial gain, constitutes fraud. And Meghan and Harry did monetize the narrative. The pregnancy announcement, the baby reveal, the subsequent interviews, the Netflix series, the documentaries, the podcast references, all built on the image of Meghan as a mother of 2, with no mention of surrogacy, a natural birth, a personal journey, a relatable mother. But what if none of it was true? Now here's the part that shook everyone. The whistleblower from Santa Barbara Cottage included a final note in her leaked message. She wrote, "It wasn't just that she wasn't there. It's that a private security team came days later and asked us to create a dummy record in case any reporters snooped. We refused. Let that hit you. A dummy record. A fake admission file. A record for a delivery that never happened. This crosses from secrecy into deception. A deliberate attempt to manufacture a digital footprint where none existed. To plug a leak. To plug a lie. But here's the twist that ties it all together. One of the entries in the dummy file, yes, it was screenshotted, listed the attending physician as Dr. Frederick Wells. Only problem? Dr. Frederick Wells retired in 2016. He hasn't practiced medicine in California in 5 years. And yet, he was listed as the attending OB for a 2021 royal birth? That's not a clerical error. That's a dead giveaway. And it means someone inside tried to cover the tracks. Badly. But they didn't expect anyone to check. Until now. So let's recap. No hospital records. No medical personnel to verify. A surrogate who says she delivered elsewhere. A whistleblower who saw the cover-up firsthand. A forged digital record with a fake doctor's name. A baby born into secrecy and silence. And all of it wrapped up in a birth announcement that now reads like a press release for a Netflix show. Not a real, traceable, legal event. So what does this mean? It means the palace may have been misled. It means the Sussex children's titles might be in jeopardy. And it means the next revelation, according to Samantha Markle, involves the actual woman who delivered the baby. Because she's talking, and she's bringing documents. What comes next could collapse the story Meghan has told the world for 3 years. And this time, even Harry won't be able to save it. She was never supposed to be seen. Never supposed to speak. She didn't get a Vogue spread. She didn't sit down with Oprah. She didn't walk onto any royal balcony, wave at a cheering crowd, or cradle a swaddled infant in front of flashing cameras. but she carried a royal child. And now, she's ready to talk. Because for years, the world believed the story of Meghan Markle's pregnancy. But behind that carefully curated narrative stood a woman in silence. Watching. Waiting. Now, she's done waiting. And she has the receipts to prove it. Let's start with what we do know. We're calling her Natalie. That's not her real name. But it's the name Samantha Markle used when speaking to an independent journalist during a closed-door session. Natalie is a professional surrogate. She's cared for 2 other families in the past. She's never spoken publicly, never given an interview, and has no social media presence tied to her surrogacy work. She was the perfect candidate. Calm, professional, invisible. And when Meghan and Harry allegedly